Will the 21st century be an age of illumination, when children inherit all of the goodness that has come before them and then use that internal wealth to transform the world? Or will it be a century of Mowgli children who know little or nothing of history and culture and make decisions based upon ignorance? My topic today is the Mowgli Factor. One of my favorite books growing up was all the Mowgli stories by Rudyard Kipling. It was fascinating to read about Mowgli's adventures in the jungle with Baloo the bear and Kaa the python and Bagheera the panther. The stories were thrilling, for what boy wouldn't like to trade insults with monkeys and run naked through the forest? Well, maybe modern cyber children wouldn't like it, but I grew up without a television in the house, and the internet wasn't available back in the 60s. It seemed like a cool idea to be raised by wolves. Now in 2018, my wife and I have 4 children who are all in their 20s and 30s. None of them were raised by wolves, at least I don't think so. Some parents wonder if aliens secretly replaced their teenagers with some other type of entities, but that's another story. Our 4 children have absolutely no desire to run naked through the jungle, for they have been educated and supposedly are not victims of what I like to call the Mowgli Factor. What is the Mowgli Factor? I define it thus. The Mowgli Factor is the strange phenomenon that occurs when a child is partially or completely denied access to the thousands of years of culture, civilization, knowledge, ethics, and spiritual teachings that have brought humankind forward to its relatively enlightened state. The Mowgli Factor also occurs when children are taught a distorted version of history and culture that prevents them from making decisions based upon truth. What does this mean for us today? Unless a child is taught to be human, which one might define as being noble, unselfish, spiritually aware, imaginative, creative, and just plain good, it is quite possible for a child to grow up and become a man or woman who knows absolutely nothing about anything. Worse, a child can be taught or can learn by example to be brutal and the very opposite of human. He or she might even believe that he or she is a wolf or wolfette. One can imagine all kinds of scenarios in which parents live far away from all other humans and teach their children that they are the only people left alive on Earth and that Martians ate everyone else. Or one can watch the very fine movie, The Village, written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, if one likes the idea of monsters in the woods. All this may seem rather fantastical, except for one grim dash of reality. Children all over the world are influenced by the Mowgli Factor, from participants in Jay Leno's televised jaywalking segments aired on NBC's The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, in which American citizens spectacularly failed to answer simple questions about American history, to children raised in cultural poverty who have never heard the glorious music of Beethoven, to children of terrorists who have been raised to hate Western civilization. One can see that education is the central factor that guides us to become saints or wolves, or perhaps even worse than wolves, dullards. At least a wolf has passion. One might think that education is a process one finds only in schools, but the Mowgli Factor is also affected by education that starts at home, with parents who try to instill the finest qualities of human behavior, starting with the education of their children's hearts. I believe that education about heart is the education that by words and example teaches children to love others, to find joy in giving and receiving love, to be sensitive toward others' feelings, and to be emotionally strong in their ability to express love when life is difficult. As I have found to my chagrin, this type of education requires that the educators actually mature and loving and patient and kind. I'd like to improve in that area. Still, even though we may be flawed as parents, I believe that it's important to articulate and adopt the goal of educating children to become men and women of unselfish love. It is also our responsibility as parents to find the way to provide cultural education for our children. I'm not talking about hoity-toity wine and cheese attitudes that we know more than others. I laugh every time I read D.H. Lawrence's poem, To Be Superior, which starts with the lines, "How nice it is to be superior, because really, it's no use pretending. One is superior, isn't one? I mean, people like you and me." I laugh because this poem pokes fun at cultural superiority. I also cringe at the realization that my own arrogance runs so deep that it may take a zillion years in the spiritual world to find true humility. One should not say, "I am the humblest person I know." No, I'm talking about the cultural education that gives children an intense appreciation for love and beauty, a love for art and music and poetry and stories and adventures and new ideas, a love of learning and a love of harmony and kindness, an appreciation for the ineffable qualities of being truly alive that one gets in touch with when one sits in a beautiful spot in nature and breathes in the beauty and glory of God's creation. Although many parents are doing a fine job, isn't it true that a large number of children around the globe are growing up without a grand vision of life that includes peace for all? A grand vision of life inspires us to do more with our lives than just eat, sleep, and work at jobs of drudgery. Vision gives a child hope and can come from many sources, including the core of goodness that exists inside each child. Another source of vision is knowledge of history and a recognition of the value of history. If we don't have the perspective that comes from understanding the seminal events that have happened in recorded history as well as prehistory, then we are living and acting from a dangerously vulnerable position. The Dark Ages were a prime example of what happens to a society when a critical mass of people lose track of history. It is not just facts and dates that are important. It is knowledge of the defining events and cultural themes of history that influence our understanding of what is valuable to society now. In 2018, it has become very clear that many universities, as well as K-12 schools, have been heavily influenced by a doctrine of leftist education that was birthed in the 60s, influenced by disinformation and Marxist propaganda. The results are deeply troubling, with students graduating today with little knowledge or distorted knowledge of history and the spiritual and cultural values that have produced the finest examples of Western civilization. One of the most horrifying results of decades of leftist education in schools was reported in the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation's annual report on U.S. attitudes towards socialism. The 2017 report shows that 58% of millennials prefer socialism, communism, or fascism instead of capitalism. 23% of millennials aged 21 to 29 think that Joseph Stalin was a hero. Millennials seem to have little awareness of the violent tragedy of communism, a system that produced wolves of deep malevolence affected by an evil Mowgli Factor that went far beyond simple ignorance. Thus, it does not bode well for Western civilization that a majority of millennials are at least partially affected by the Mowgli Factor. I do not blame them. The ones responsible for this dreadful state of affairs are their professors, teachers, and school administrators. It is tragic that millennials' vision of life has been influenced by historical distortions to such a degree that it makes one wonder if freedom-centered Western civilization will survive. Still, we have a chance in the West to step back from the brink. To do that, I believe that a grand vision of life requires a balanced view about the spiritual nature of human beings and the sacred rights of the individual, followed by the acknowledgement that freedom of speech and freedom of religion are priceless and inviolable rights of human beings. The question of our time could be couched thus: will we become a humanistic and totalitarian society of intelligent, two-legged wolves, or will we find a deeper meaning in life, stemming from a common sense belief that our creativity and desire for love are attributes given to us by a transcendent creator? My belief in prayer and hope is that the 21st century will be the age of illumination, an age that will be ushered in by all of our efforts to teach our children that human beings are not wolves, but are magnificent beings created for lives of beauty and lives of love. Once our children learn that, I'll have no objection at all if they want to run naked through the jungle, as long as they're kind to monkeys and don't get bitten by spiders. Thank you for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at @FalkenBrown and email me at peterbrown@worldcommunity.com. I invite you to subscribe, leave a comment, click on the like button, and share this video with 2 or more friends. I also invite you to become a patron of the arts and join the Love, Freedom, and the World project by going to our crowdfunding platform at patreon.com/Peter Falkenberg Brown. Each level of contributor will receive a unique type of reward as our way of saying thank you. By contributing as little as $3 per month, you'll become a team member and will be able to provide valuable suggestions for new video topics and brainstorm new ways to reach a thirsty world with words of love, beauty, joy, and freedom. I am very grateful for all your support. I could not do this without you. So until next time, love and blessings, and thank you.